What happens when America's sweetheart walks into what she thinks is a routine morning show interview, only to discover the host has an entirely different agenda? Today we're diving into the explosive confrontation that had viewers across the nation glued to their screens as Julia Roberts and George Stephanopoulos went head-to-head in what became one of the most uncomfortable moments in Good Nodder. Morning America history. Before we get into this incredible story, make sure to hit that subscribe button and let me know in the comments what you think really caused this heated exchange. The cameras rolled live that Tuesday morning, and what started as a typical celebrity interview quickly spiraled into something nobody saw coming. "Good morning, Julia." "Thanks for joining us," George said, his voice carrying its usual professional warmth. "Good morning, George. Always a pleasure to be here," Julia replied, settling into her chair with that trademark smile that had charmed audiences for decades. "So let's talk about your new film. It's a story about redemption, about people getting second chances. That must resonate with you personally." Julia's eyes lit up. "Absolutely. I think we all deserve the opportunity to grow, to make amends for our mistakes. The character I play goes through this beautiful journey of self-discovery." George nodded, but his expression shifted slightly. "Speaking of second chances and making amends, I'd like to ask you about the Children's Hope Foundation gala you attended last month." The smile on Julia's face faltered just a fraction. "What about it?" "Well, our research team discovered some interesting information about that organization. Were you aware of the financial irregularities that have come to light?" Julia's posture stiffened. "I'm sorry. What financial irregularities?" "George, I thought we were here to talk about my film." "We are, but your involvement with questionable charities reflects on your public image, doesn't it? Especially when you're promoting a movie about moral redemption." The tension in the studio was palpable, as Julia's famous composure began to crack. "Questionable charities?" "George, I need you to be very careful about what you're implying here." "I'm not implying anything, Julia. I'm asking direct questions about your association with an organization that allegedly misappropriated funds meant for disadvantaged children." Julia leaned forward, her voice dropping to a controlled but clearly agitated tone. "You're making serious accusations without giving me context or allowing me to respond properly. This is supposed to be a promotional interview, not an ambush." "An ambush? Julia, this is journalism. Don't you think the public has a right to know about these connections?" "What connections?" "You're speaking in riddles, George. If you have specific allegations, then make them clearly instead of dancing around with insinuations." The studio crew exchanged glances as George pressed forward. "The foundation's former treasurer came forward with documents showing significant fund diversions. Your name appears on several donor lists, and you were the keynote speaker at their largest fundraiser." Julia's voice rose slightly. "Being a keynote speaker doesn't make me responsible for their accounting practices. I donated my time to help children, which is something I've done my entire career. But didn't you perform due diligence before associating your name with them?" "Due diligence? George, are you seriously suggesting that every celebrity should hire forensic accountants before supporting a children's charity? When your involvement brings in millions of dollars in donations, yes, I think that responsibility comes with the territory." Julia stood up partially from her chair. "This is unbelievable. You brought me here under false pretenses to attack my character based on some unnamed source and documents I've never seen. I brought you here to have an honest conversation about accountability and celebrity philanthropy. No, you brought me here for a hit piece. There's a difference between journalism and sensationalism, George, and right now you're failing to recognize it." The cameras continued rolling as the confrontation escalated, capturing every moment of what was becoming television gold, but also a professional nightmare for both parties involved. The cameras continued rolling as the confrontation escalated, capturing every moment of what was becoming television gold, but also a professional nightmare for both parties involved. George maintained his composed demeanor, but there was a steely determination in his eyes. "Julia, I understand you're upset, but these are legitimate questions that deserve answers." "Legitimate questions?" Julia's voice cracked with incredulity. "You're assassinating my character on live television based on allegations I know nothing about. Where are these documents you mentioned? Show them to me right now." "I can't reveal confidential sources or provide documents during a live broadcast, you know that." Julia laughed, but there was no humor in it. How convenient. So you can make accusations, but you can't back them up with evidence. That's not journalism, George. That's tabloid garbage. The evidence exists, Julia. Multiple sources have corroborated the financial mismanagement at Children's Hope Foundation. Multiple sources? Julia's eyebrows shot up. Now there are multiple sources? A minute ago it was one former treasurer. Which is it, George? George shifted in his seat, clearly not expecting Julia to push back so forcefully. There are several individuals who have come forward with concerns about the organization's practices. Concerns, allegations, sources, documents that you can't show me. Do you hear yourself right now? You're destroying my reputation with hearsay and speculation. Your reputation is built on your public actions, and your public actions include lending your name and credibility to organizations that may have defrauded children. Julia's composure finally snapped. May have? May have? George, you're literally saying may have while trying to crucify me on national television. Either they did or they didn't. Either you have proof or you don't. The investigation is ongoing, but the preliminary findings are concerning enough to warrant public discussion. Public discussion? This isn't a discussion, this is a public execution. You scheduled me for a film interview and turned it into a criminal interrogation. George leaned back, his voice taking on a slightly condescending tone. Julia, I think you're being overly dramatic. These are standard questions that any public figure should be prepared to answer. Standard questions? Julia's voice rose another octave. George, in 25 years of doing interviews, no one has ever ambushed me like this. And don't you dare tell me I'm being dramatic when you're the one making wild accusations. They're not wild accusations. They're based on documented evidence of financial irregularities. Then document it. Show me the documentation. Put it on screen right now if you're so confident in your sources. The production team behind the cameras was frantically gesturing, unsure whether to cut to commercial or let the train wreck continue. George glanced at his notes, then back at Julia. The documents are being reviewed by our legal department before they can be made public. Your legal department? Julia laughed again, this time with genuine amusement mixed with fury. So let me get this straight. You don't have the documents here. You can't show them to me. Your legal team is still reviewing them, but you felt comfortable enough to destroy my reputation on live television anyway? Julia, I'm giving you the opportunity to respond to these allegations. Respond to what? You haven't given me any specific allegations to respond to. You've given me vague insinuations and anonymous sources. How am I supposed to defend myself against ghosts? George's professional facade was beginning to crack. The Children's Hope Foundation received over $3 million in donations directly attributable to your involvement. Don't you feel any responsibility for where that money went? Of course I feel responsibility, but I also did my homework. I met with their board of directors, I visited their facilities, I saw the work they were doing with underprivileged children. What more was I supposed to do? Audit their books personally? Perhaps consulting with financial experts before lending your celebrity status to fundraising efforts? George, are you listening to yourself? You're suggesting that every celebrity who supports charity should hire teams of accountants and investigators before they can help children. Do you realize how insane that sounds? I'm suggesting that with great influence comes great responsibility. Julia stood up from her chair completely now, her voice carrying across the entire studio. Don't you dare quote Spider-Man at me while you're trying to destroy my career. You want to talk about responsibility? What about your responsibility as a journalist, to present facts instead of gossip? These aren't gossips, Julia. These are serious allegations from credible sources. Credible sources that you won't name, with documents you won't show, making allegations you can't specify. George, if this is your idea of credible journalism, then Good Morning America has seriously lowered its standards. The tension was so thick you could cut it with a knife. George's co-hosts, who had remained silent throughout the exchange, were exchanging worried glances. The control room was in complete chaos as producers debated whether to intervene. Julia, I think you need to calm down and address the substance of these concerns rather than attacking the messenger. Calm down? Julia's eyes flashed dangerously. You just spent the last 10 minutes trying to paint me as someone who defrauds children, and you want me to calm down? George, I came here to talk about a movie where I play a teacher who dedicates her life to helping kids overcome adversity. Instead, you've turned this into a witch hunt based on unnamed sources and invisible evidence. The evidence isn't invisible, it's just not appropriate for broadcast at this time. Then it wasn't appropriate to bring up these accusations at this time either, was it? Then it wasn't appropriate to bring up these accusations at this time either, was it? George's jaw tightened visibly. Julia, I'm trying to give you a platform to address these concerns before they become public through other channels. Other channels? Julia's voice was incredulous. What other channels? Are you threatening me now? Are you saying that if I don't play along with your ambush interview, you'll leak this story somewhere else? That's not what I said. That's exactly what you implied. You're holding my reputation hostage and demanding I participate in my own character assassination. The studio had fallen completely silent, except for their voices. Even the camera operators had stopped moving, transfixed by the unprecedented confrontation unfolding before them. George took a deep breath, trying to regain control. Julia, let's step back for a moment. The Children's Hope Foundation has been under investigation by the State Attorney General's office for 6 months. This isn't some conspiracy theory or gossip column story. The State Attorney General's office? Julia's demeanor shifted slightly. Why didn't you lead with that information instead of dancing around with vague accusations? Because I wanted to give you the opportunity to explain your involvement before revealing the full scope of the investigation. My involvement? George, my involvement was showing up to speak at their gala and encouraging people to donate to help children. If there's a criminal investigation, then obviously I had no knowledge of any wrongdoing. But you did receive a substantial speaking fee for that appearance. Julia's eyes narrowed dangerously. Excuse me? According to our sources, you were paid $75,000 for your keynote speech. And I donate my time to dozens of charities every year, but occasionally I do accept speaking fees that I then donate to other causes. What exactly are you suggesting? I'm suggesting that accepting payment from an organization that was allegedly defrauding donors creates a conflict of interest. Julia took a step closer to George's desk. A conflict of interest? George, are you accusing me of knowingly taking money from fraudulent activities? I'm asking if you knew about the financial irregularities when you accepted the payment. Of course I didn't know. If I had known about any financial irregularities, I never would have associated with them in the first place. This is exactly what I mean about your irresponsible journalism. You're asking loaded questions designed to make me look guilty regardless of how I answer. George's voice became more aggressive. Julia, you're a sophisticated businesswoman with financial advisors and agents. Don't you think due diligence should include verifying that charitable organizations are legitimate before accepting large payments from them? Large payments? $75,000 for a keynote speech at a major charity gala is completely standard in this industry. I've been paid more than that for corporate events, and I've been paid less for other charity work. The fee wasn't unusual. But the organization was under investigation at the time. Under investigation by whom? You keep saying there's an investigation, but you haven't told me who's investigating or what specific crimes they're alleged to have committed. George shuffled through his papers. The State Attorney General's office opened an investigation into financial mismanagement and possible fraud in their fundraising operations. When? When what? When did they open this investigation? Before my speech or after? George hesitated. The investigation began approximately 2 months after your keynote appearance. Julia's expression shifted from anger to something approaching triumph. 2 months after my appearance? So you're holding me responsible for an investigation that didn't even exist when I spoke at their event? The alleged activities occurred before your speech. Alleged activities that weren't public knowledge and weren't being investigated by any law enforcement agency at the time I spoke there. George was clearly losing ground. Julia, the point is that celebrities have a responsibility to thoroughly vet the organizations they endorse. I did vet them, George. I spoke with their leadership, I reviewed their mission statement, I looked at their programs. I did everything any reasonable person would do before supporting a charity. I'm not a forensic accountant, and I'm not a private investigator. But your endorsement carries significant weight with the public. And that's exactly why I take it seriously. But you're asking me to be psychic, to somehow know about financial irregularities that law enforcement agencies only discovered months later. The confrontation was reaching a fever pitch. George made one final attempt to regain control of the narrative. Julia, all I'm asking for is some acknowledgement that celebrities need to be more careful about the organizations they support. Julia's laugh was sharp and bitter. More careful? George, I've supported dozens of legitimate charities throughout my career. I've helped raise millions of dollars for causes ranging from disaster relief to medical research. And you want to destroy my reputation because one organization out of dozens may have had financial problems that nobody knew about at the time? I'm not trying to destroy your reputation. Really? Then what would you call this? You ambushed me with accusations. You won't provide evidence. You won't name sources. And you're asking me to defend myself against crimes I didn't commit and knew nothing about. I'm asking you to take responsibility for your role in this situation. My role? Julia's voice reached a new level of outrage. My role was trying to help children. My role was using my platform to encourage charitable giving. My role was showing up when a children's charity asked me to speak at their fundraiser. George stood up from his chair, matching Julia's aggressive posture. And your role included accepting a large payment from an organization that was allegedly defrauding the very children you claim to want to help. That was the final straw. Julia's composure completely shattered. Allegedly, George. Allegedly. You keep using that word like it's a shield that protects you from the consequences of destroying someone's reputation on national television. You know what's not alleged? The fact that you brought me here under false pretenses. The fact that you've spent the last 20 minutes trying to paint me as a criminal. The fact that you're using unnamed sources and unseen documents to assassinate my character. Julia, please sit down and let's discuss this rationally. Rationally? There's nothing rational about this conversation, George. You've abandoned every principle of responsible journalism to create a sensational story. The entire studio was in chaos now. Producers were frantically signaling from behind the cameras, trying to figure out how to handle the unprecedented situation. Julia, if you would just answer the questions instead of deflecting. Deflecting? I've answered every question you've asked, but you keep moving the goalposts. First it was about my association with the charity, then it was about due diligence, then it was about the speaking fee, now it's about taking responsibility for things I couldn't have known about. George's voice became cold and professional. The bottom line is that your involvement with Children's Hope Foundation resulted in significant donations to an organization that may have defrauded contributors. May have, George, may have, and my involvement consisted of encouraging people to help children. If that organization committed fraud, then they're the criminals, not me. But you're treating me like I'm an accomplice to crimes that haven't even been proven yet. The investigation is ongoing. Then why are we having this conversation on live television before the investigation is complete? Why are you trying and convicting me in the court of public opinion based on an ongoing investigation? George realized he had lost control of the interview completely. Julia, I think we should take a commercial break. No, George, we're not taking a commercial break. You started this ambush, and we're going to finish it. You want to talk about responsibility? Let's talk about your responsibility as a journalist. You have a responsibility to present facts, not speculation. You have a responsibility to give people a fair opportunity to respond to accusations. You have a responsibility to distinguish between news and sensationalism. I've given you plenty of opportunity to respond. You've given me the opportunity to defend myself against vague accusations and anonymous sources. That's not the same thing. The confrontation had reached its absolute peak. Julia was standing at the edge of George's desk, her voice carrying throughout the entire studio complex. George, I've been in this business for over 25 years. I've given hundreds of interviews to journalists who actually cared about facts and fairness. What you've done here today isn't journalism, it's character assassination. And the fact that you're doing it on live television, without giving me advance notice or the opportunity to review the allegations, is beyond unprofessional. It's malicious. George made one final attempt to salvage his position. Julia, the public has a right to know about these connections. What connections? The connection between me and a charity that asked me to speak at their fundraiser? The connection between me and an organization that I had no reason to suspect was anything other than legitimate? You're creating connections that don't exist to justify a story that shouldn't exist. That's when Julia Roberts made the decision that would end her appearance on Good Morning America forever. She reached for the wireless microphone clipped to her jacket. "You know what, George? I'm done. I'm done with your ambush journalism. I'm done with your baseless accusations. And I'm done pretending that this is a legitimate interview." She unclipped the microphone and placed it firmly on George's desk. When you decide to practice actual journalism instead of tabloid sensationalism, when you have real evidence instead of anonymous gossip, and when you're ready to treat guests with basic human decency, then maybe we can have a real conversation. Until then, this interview is over. The studio fell into stunned silence as Julia Roberts walked off the Good Morning America set, leaving George Stephanopoulos sitting alone at his desk with a dead microphone and millions of viewers watching the aftermath of one of the most explosive confrontations in morning television history. What started as a routine promotional interview had become a masterclass in how quickly things can go wrong when journalism crosses the line into sensationalism. The confrontation left viewers across the country asking themselves who was really in the right, and whether the line between holding celebrities accountable and destroying their reputations had been crossed that morning in Times Square. So what do you think? Was George Stephanopoulos justified